Hi, Damien at Scalp Guru. Today I'd like to address the question of what your procedure is likely to cost. There are three factors that affect most heavily the quotation that you will receive. The first one is your location, second is your specific needs and requirements, and the third is what type of provider you go to. Okay, so where you're located actually has quite a significant effect on the cost of your procedure. Some areas are just more expensive, so California, Florida, certain parts of Texas, traveling outside of the US, if you go somewhere like Dubai, Singapore, London, these places are just more expensive. Whereas actually there are some locations that are surprisingly cost efficient, and so New York is actually one of the most competitive places in the world to have a procedure because of the number of providers there. So you'll actually find the quotes that you get will be better in New York. In the northern parts of the UK, for example, if you go to Manchester, Glasgow, you'll find that the cost comes down. Some clients do choose to travel. It's questionable as to whether you'd be better off by the time you factored in flights and accommodation and so on. But it's worth keeping an open mind. The most significant factor is how much work you need done. So the longer you're in the chair for, the more your procedure is going to cost. For more minor work, you'll find that the procedure is going to cost you a lot less. So if you want some reconstructive work done around the frontal hairline or around the crown area, but you don't need a full procedure, then in the US you're going to be looking at something in the region of $1,500 to $2,250. That's the kind of price range you can expect. In the UK, you can expect to pay between £1,000 and £1,500. And for most of Western Europe, you're going to be looking at between 1,250 and €2,000. If your requirements are more standard, so let's say for example you've lost the majority of your hair, so you're in Norwood 4 through to 7. So in which case you are, even if you have some remaining hair left, you are going to need the entire top of the head treated, which is going to take the technician a little bit more time. Then in the US, you're going to be looking at between $2,700 and $4,000. As I mentioned before, in Florida and in California, you're going to be closer to the $4,000 mark. In New York, you're going to be closer to the $2,700 mark. It really does depend on who you approach. In the UK, you're going to be looking at between £1,800 and £3,000, including VAT. And in Europe between €2,350 and €4,000, including taxes. If your requirements are more specific, so let's say for example you have alopecia totalis or you have alopecia areata that's more aggressive, so you've lost significant portions of your hair, then you need to bear in mind that there's a good chance your technician is going to need to treat areas at the side and at the back as well. So with that in mind, I mean the pricing is very, very difficult to determine without photographs. But in the US, you're going to be looking at somewhere between $3,700 and $6,000 for a procedure. In the UK, between £2,500 and £4,000, and in Europe, between $3,200 and $5,000. The third factor that comes into play is the type of provider that you choose to approach. So some of the scalp micropigmentation providers are hair transplant companies. Some of them are dedicated SMP providers. Some of them are permanent makeup artists. Some of them are tattoo artists. And depending on who you approach, you're going to find that there is a significant difference in the price that you are quoted. So, for example, if you approach a hair transplant office, you are going to pay a higher price because they have a full medical facility. Your procedure will be carried out or overseen by a qualified physician. If you go to a dedicated scalp micropigmentation provider, then their price is usually dependent on their reputation. So if you have a world-class company with a stellar reputation that's booked up for months in advance, you're going to pay a little bit more than if you were to go to one of the newer providers that perhaps is still building its reputation. Permanent makeup artists tend to offer very competitive pricing, and they offer varying levels of experience, so it's always worth looking into, but do your homework, of course. So yeah, the bottom line is that the type of provider that you go to is going to have an impact. We don't have any specific recommendations one way or the other. It really depends on your budget and what type of environment you feel would suit you best. But it's worth checking out quotations from a couple of different types of provider, just so that you can see for yourself what the difference could be in your area. That's a wrap. Thank you very much for listening, and see you soon.